I can teach someone to be, a network or a firewall security engineer, or you can teach someone what, the codes of practice around vulnerability management, right? But you really can't teach someone, to be eager to learn, right? And to take on new responsibility.
This is a Security Weekly production. Security Weekly is a resource of Cyber Risk Alliance.
The Cybersecurity Collaborative, in conjunction with Cyber Reason, is proud to present CISO Stories. Each week, CISO Stories takes a deep dive on security leadership. The Cybersecurity Collaborative is a unique membership community enabling cybersecurity leaders to work together in a trusted environment. To learn more, visit securityweekly.com/CSC. I'm your host, Todd Fitzgerald, and this week we welcome John Iatonna, CISO at Spencer Stuart.
So I've been in security now for 20 years, probably. I got into security probably about 4 jobs back now. I was doing security in a time when it was much different. The threat landscape was certainly, it feels much simpler looking back on it now, much less complex. I got into it because I enjoyed the analytic engineering aspects to it. I had come into a pure play security role the way that a lot of people may have back then, up through the IT side, and as a sysadmin and network engineer. And I enjoyed the investigative aspect of it, the analysis and the problem solving aspect of it. And then from there, as I felt like as my experience matured and the field got more and more complex, took on more and more responsibility in different roles, specifically in cybersecurity, and brought me to where I am today. And so my focus now as a CISO is, rather than my focus now being a CISO is finding the smart people to do the work that I used to enjoy doing day to day.
So did you find that difficult leaving that, being the person who was doing that sort of work behind and moving into the CISO role?
To a degree, right? And certainly some days are better than others. I think it's different kinds of problem solving. Perhaps it's problem solving of a different nature, problem solving programmatically as opposed to individual problems. So there are times too that in the job that I have today, which I thoroughly enjoy my time at Spencer Stuart. It's not so large an organization that I can't get my feet or get my hands dirty when I want to. So it's a good balance. There are some CISO roles, I think, that if you're working for a multi-billion-dollar huge multinational, you don't touch tech at all. And the job that I'm in right now primarily keeps me focused at the programmatic level, but from time to time, I can still get in the mix.
So you kind of have the best of both worlds then.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I don't know how good a world a CISO's job is these days, but it sometimes it's great. Yes.
So you wrote a great piece for the CISO Compass book, Navigating Cybersecurity Leadership Challenges with Insights from Pioneers. And you talked about how to, should you develop from within or should you hire a consultant? And getting talent these days is such a big issue. Could you walk us through that a little bit, what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, so it's certainly no less challenging today than when we had this discussion last time about hiring, and probably doubly so, if not triply so, now with the pandemic and different types of expectations for people that work in technology. I think it really depends on where your program is and what your long term, like what your near term tactical issues are, and what your longer term goal for your program looks like, which would guide your decision making on the kind of talent that you need. I have hired both, promoted from within and developed talent internally, which I always really enjoy doing. But, of course, there's some situations that either because it's you've got an immediate need and you don't have the runway for development, or you've got something so specialized that you might need someone to come in, like an outside expert to come in and fill that role that will guide your decision making. I mean, if and when I can, I choose to, or I try to develop from within. And there's benefits to that. I think that you foster confidence within the broader organization that you're looking to try and source talent from within your firm and grow your talent internally. And I think that builds goodwill across the different teams within your IT organization, and perhaps even outside your IT organization. And then selfishly, I get, if you get someone who's got a lot of potential and they are the right fit, selfishly, you have someone that can hit the ground running in your on your team and begin to act and work and get stuff done faster than you could bring in someone from the outside. So if I'm able to bring someone in, if I'm able to cultivate internal talent, that's my first instinct. But sometimes it's just not the case, right? For the reasons I've explained, either too specialized or too immediate.
It must be an interesting position for you to take, since Spencer Stuart is a very well-known recruiting firm, right? Which places high level executives. And I saw a study not too long ago that Forrester went and looked at LinkedIn and looked at the CISOs of the Fortune 500, and they found that 59% of the CISOs were external hires. So coming from some other organization. Why do you think that would be?
It could be 59%. It's certainly very high, right? I think a lot of the time that when you're bringing someone in from the outside, you're hiring because you're looking for someone with a fresh set of eyes and a new way of looking at the problems. I would tell you too that hearing a statistic that high tells me that perhaps in our industry we're not doing a good enough job to foster internal talent and foster people that could take over for you when you are no longer part of the firm, like doing a better job with succession planning. It's tough to say, though. I think every industry is difficult, or every industry is different, and it tough to get a good read on that, I guess.
Yeah, and I really like your approach of developing people from within. It's I think it sounds like it's the right thing that we should be doing. And you mentioned that there's some of those skill sets, some of those specialized skill sets where you said that you need to sometimes go outside of the organization to get. What skill sets are you finding that are difficult to keep in-house, or that you have to go outside for?
Yeah, the one that I think is increasingly difficult to find internally, and what I'm fortunate that I've got a great person on my team that does this specifically around application security, right? And if you are a company that either does in-house development, or even if you're someone that consumes a lot of external, SaaS applications, and having that's very specialized knowledge and very specialized security. We have a pretty big in-house the software development organization in a couple of different areas for two platforms that are crucial to our line of business. And we do all of our own in-house development, and we needed someone to be able to sit in the office with other developers, sit in the office with project managers who are creating new product and the like, and be able to give subject matter expertise on decisions that people were making, development decisions that people were making. So having that and having someone that had a pedigree of a pen tester, right, and someone who had experience working with developers was crucial for us. And that's something that's not a talent that you typically have that you can develop unless you already have someone on your team that can impart that. So so that's one. Increasingly, it's increasingly trying to find talent that understands cloud security in a very fundamental way is tricky. And so I've gone outside specifically for experts in AWS security or experts in cloud security. I would tell you, I think, though, that's probably something that over the course of the next 5 years, you'll have more and more aptitude internally as more and more companies are, either wholly present in the cloud or on their way to the cloud. A familiarity with cloud architecture and cloud functions and the associated security decisions that you would make. I think that you're going to see more and more of that required internally. So perhaps that's something over the next few years that we could start to cultivate. But near term, if you really need someone who knows cloud inside and out and needs someone who can protect cloud services, that's another discipline that I've had to go outside for.
Yeah, I think that is a big skill set that's really needed out there. And I think the market is showing that supply and demand. As you look at the surveys that are done each year, the top 15 IT certifications that are out there, the ones that are at the top of the list and the salaries that just keep growing at the top of that list are the AWS and the cloud security architect roles, which are very difficult to have, and many organizations may not be able to afford to have somebody like that on their team the entire time.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so, if you start having to make, trade-offs like that for cloud security engineers or cloud security architects, then, perhaps it's a consideration that if you have an internal team that does cloud at an operational level, perhaps one of those people would be interested in pivoting into security and then training up specifically in the security disciplines in those areas, right? And so you could, satisfy your need for a cloud security engineer, and that person would come to you with organizational knowledge, and perhaps that means you've got a 6 month to a year ramp before that person is as versed as he or she needs to be. But you'll plug that gap though, potentially with an internal hire, which, going back to what we were saying earlier, it's great to promote within, when you can.
The article this podcast is based upon can be viewed in the best-selling cybersecurity leadership book, CISO Compass, Navigating Cybersecurity Leadership Challenges with Insights from Pioneers, available at Amazon.com and other booksellers. And I really liked the point that you said in your article, that you talked about how you underestimated the length of time that would take to ramp somebody up within the organization to get to be that, to have that knowledge that was required to do the job.
Bringing someone in from outside?
To develop that within the team. And the fact that they have, you also noted that they had other responsibilities that they were still having to juggle and couldn't devote, the full time to that particular acquiring that skill set.
Yeah, but that is a risk, and that's actually something that I've learned over the years to be a little more formalized about how I go about making that transition for people that are coming into my team from different areas of IT, and because you're absolutely right that there is, they come to your team with organizational awareness and understanding of who to go to for what and how to get stuff done within the organization, and being able to navigate your firm in a way that a new person might not. But then there's also that legacy of support, if you want to call it, where you've still got people either who still look to that individual as a subject matter expert of their old job, and it takes away from the work that they're doing present day. And so, I've been a little more structured the last few times that I've done that, specifically because I want to ensure that, on whatever day you agree with that person's current manager, that you agree that person has made the move to your team to work towards it, plan towards it, and make sure that there's the right people that they can hand off those legacy responsibilities to, and to make sure that the person that you're bringing onto your team is focused on the mission of information security. So.
Sure. And you mentioned something that's very important is the team chemistry. What sort of things do you look for to see if somebody is right for the team, whether they're a new hire or a consultant that's joining your team?
Across the board, I would tell you just someone that's hungry and willing to jump in and learn quickly. I can teach someone to be, a network or a firewall security engineer. Or you can teach someone what the codes of practice around vulnerability management, right? But you really can't teach someone, to be eager to learn, right, and to take on new responsibility, and so that's first and foremost, right. And I think that comes across pretty easily when you're having discussions with people who are interested in the role, and that I would tell you too, that someone who is willing to share their knowledge as well, someone who will come onto a team and bring their experience with them and enrich the people around them, share their understanding and share their experience and work towards the common goal of protecting the firm. So and those are things that you can't train someone up on, right? They kind of have to be built into that person's DNA. And I love seeing that.
So what do you kind of look for on the job interview, I guess, to help ferret that out, to see if somebody's going to be that kind of individual when they're actually hired onto your team?
Yeah, good question. I think that someone who is going to be I would like to think that, as someone who's been, hiring and building teams for many years now, I feel like I think that I can identify those people. I think it comes across in the way that you present yourself as someone who, one, of course, enjoys learning, and someone who is open and transparent. I think that discussions about how that person has grown in their own role and in previous positions has a bearing on their willingness to learn and share with peers in their current role. And if they talk about perhaps previous jobs where they felt like they were successful because they were part of the team that was successful, those are the kinds of experiences that I look for, and the kinds of characteristics that I look for when I'm talking to people, potential people to come onto my team.
I really like your internal development, and you also talk about the long-term development. with the demand on security professionals today being what it is, and somebody, being able to change jobs. And I know that, we've had all this talk about the great resignation. And I think we have to, time will tell whether we really had the great resignation or whether that was, something that as the situation that we're in right now moves on, will that actually materialize or not?
Mm-hmm.
But what do you consider to be long-term development for somebody? What sort of period of time do you think that is today that would be realistic?
I think that there's, I see, growth and development in, kind of a near term and a longer term runway, right? So, when I think of near term development for people on my team, I think of, the skills and perhaps some of the technologies they'll cut their teeth on in the course of the next, 12 to 18 months, and the experience they'll get developing knowledge in new technology, new process, new skill set, whatever that is. And then longer term, where they see themselves over the course of the next, perhaps, 3 years, perhaps 5 years, and whether that track is a track that they want to stay technical and perhaps operate as a principal in a specific discipline, or whether they're looking to progress, in a parallel track or a different track of management. And so I like to focus on, when someone's new to the team, obviously we're talking about stuff that's very kind of near term, the projects that they're interested in, the projects that we have available for them, people to work on, and the skills that they don't have today, but they would like to have in the, over the course of the next year or two. And then longer term, where they see themselves, beyond the immediate stuff that they're working on and learning. And a lot of the time people perhaps haven't even given it that thought, right? But I think that in order to be successful in any career, you should be giving some thought to where you think you'll see yourself in a few years down the road. And I always encourage people to kind of visualize that. And to the extent that I can help them on their way along that journey, I love to do it. I love cultivating people and bringing new people into the industry and helping them grow.
And I think that must help you with your retention as well.
I hope so. I certainly, going into to your point about the Great Resignation, I certainly hope that it will make my life easier in the near and the long term. Sometimes I guess I think about growth and retention in a couple of different ways, right? And you've been through this before, I know as well. When you've got a team, and especially when you've got a young team that are looking to grow, if someone's a great security engineer or a great manager or great pen tester or whatever you want to call it, and they want to grow and develop, oftentimes with the firm that you're in, there's an opportunity for them to grow and have that development within your firm, right? But then there are sometimes people, depending on the firm and depending on the opportunities that are available to you, or to them rather, there might not be a path for them, or they top out within your firm. And if that person, in order to take the next step in their growth, if that next opportunity is outside the firm, it's unfortunate, to be sure, that you might lose someone you spent the past 3 or 4 years, developing and growing. But ultimately, if the focus is on talent development and growing and making people successful, perhaps that success is outside the firm. And I realize that, and anyone managing a team of people realizes that, and but it's still a success. So I look at it that way.
I think that's really a great perspective to have, because we are all really in this together. So any last pieces of advice? This has been really great, John. Anything you want to share with our listeners as they go down this path?
I think that it's certainly a difficult time right now for across all professions, right? And finding talent is tricky. And I would tell you that in a time of increased competition for great people to join your organization, thinking creatively about who you hire is of paramount importance. That I don't see that getting, the pandemic has certainly exacerbated it, right? But Todd, you've been working in InfoSec for a long time. It's always been a pain to find good people. It's always been a challenge to find good people in security, right? It's just, this has probably made it a little bit tougher and certainly a lot more expensive to hire good people, right? But it's never been easy to hire in this field. And so I feel like the last couple years has been tricky, to be sure. But I think if you think about the people you're hiring, both in terms of what they can do for you today, as well as what their potential is longer term, and then get creative about what you think success in this role that you're hiring for, or what talent looks like to you as part of your information security program, you perhaps it's not as tricky as you might think.
I think that's a great perspective. And thanks, John, for taking the time. I know you're a really busy guy. Thanks for taking the time today to talk to our listeners.
Certainly. Really appreciate you inviting me to be on, and always glad to chat.
Thank you.
Cybereason is the champion for today's defenders, providing an endpoint security platform to prevent, detect, and respond to malicious operations on computers, mobile devices, servers, and the cloud. Cybereason. End cyber attacks from endpoints to the enterprise to everywhere. Learn more at cybereason.com/CISO stories.